sat down, I realized I'm going to drink this coffee before we get done. These Christmas cups are small. Ecclesiastes chapter 8. Who is like a wise man, and who knows the interpretation of a thing? A man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the sternness of his face is changed. Wisdom makes a man's face shine. I mean, I'll say there is something about growing in knowledge and wisdom that it is exciting. It's exciting for me. You know, and I'll admit I'm wired differently. We're all wired differently. We're all purposefully, intentionally made. Now, the fearfully and wonderfully made, a lot of that is speaking of the intention, right? That God made us intentionally. And I know that learning and that kind of stuff is something that God designed me particularly for. But I think in all, I think any child, when they learn a new thing or they finally get it, what they've been doing, it makes their face shine. And I think many people, one of the joys of salvation, David says, restore to me that joy of salvation. One of the joys of salvation is that everyone's just learning all these new things. You get saved and just your world explodes with new information that you never knew about before. And honestly, there's Christians who've been Christians for 30 plus years. And maybe eventually then they start going to a Bible teaching church or whatnot. And then boom, it's like this explosion of knowledge. So I say, keep the king's commandment for the sake of your oath to God. Do not be hasty to go from his presence. Do not take your stand for an evil thing, for he does whatever pleases him. Interesting that here in the Old Testament, I don't think off the top of my head I would have thought of Ecclesiastes 8:2, but we see the parallels in Romans 13 and in 1 Peter 2, right? Obeying the governing authorities. That's something that's been in the Old Testament and the New Testament. Just the basic concept that, generally there are rules in place for good reasons and that we're supposed to follow them. Oh yes, there's a long conversation there, but the general principle has never changed. Now, 4-8. Where the word of a king is, there is power. And who might say to him, what are you doing? He who keeps his command will experience nothing harmful. And a wise man's heart discerns both time and judgment. Because for every matter there is a time and judgment, though the misery of man increases greatly. For he does not know what will happen, so who can tell him when it will occur? No one has power over the spirit to retain the spirit, and no one has the power in the day of death. There is no release from that war, and wickedness will not deliver those who are given to it. All this I have seen, verse 9, and applied my heart to every work that is done under the sun. There is a time in which one man rules over another to his own hurt. So, at the beginning of this section, it talks about he who keeps his command will experience nothing harmful. Okay, so that's verse 5. So the general concept, right? The general concept. And again, that's kind of like the book of Proverbs. And we really hammer that home as we are in Proverbs, that general principles. General principles. If you treat it like a law, like, well, this is the way it is, it can never change and never be different, well, then you might run into some problems. But as a general principle, obeying the law is a good thing. And obeying the governing authorities is going to do you well. But here where it talks about, I've seen it though, where one man rules over another to his own hurt. So, I mean, obviously there are times where there are bad leaders and there are things like that going on. And he's also just commenting here, that even following all the rules and doing everything you can, no one has power. I'm yawning. It's Mondays. I'm always tired on Mondays after Sunday. But no one has power to retain his own spirit. No one has power over death. This is before Jesus, of course, and that's a little different context than our practical application here. And so he's just saying, obey the leaders, you'll do well, but you can't control everything, even if you obey the leaders. And then he talks a little bit about death here, and I got some notes here. Let's see here, 10 to 17. Maybe we can knock out the whole chapter in one day. Then I saw the wicked buried, who had come and gone from the place of holiness, and they were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This is also vanity. So it's kind of like wicked people die, and once they're dead, people forget about their wickedness. So it's kind of like, does that make sense? Like, it's like, well, then it's like, well, who cares that they were wicked? Because everyone just forgets about them. It's not like they have this ongoing reputation, and generally, that's true. Sure, there's been a few wicked people throughout all time, and we remember who they are. You think of like Hitler is a great example. But we've forgotten most of the wickedness. And so he's just talking about this idea. They come and they go, and then they're forgotten about. Because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. Though a sinner does evil 100 times, his days are prolonged. Yet I surely know that it will be well with those who fear God and who fear before him. So he's saying, you know what? Sometimes the wicked get away with some stuff here and there. But one thing I do know, the wicked may get away with stuff, but the righteous will be rewarded eternally. Verse 13, but it will not be well with the wicked, nor will he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he does not fear before God. So the righteous, God will take care of. The wicked, not so. Verse 14, there is a vanity which occurs on earth, that there are just men to whom it happens according to the work of the wicked. Again, there are wicked men to whom it happens according to the work of the righteous. I said this is also vanity. Frustrating when you see good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people. So I commended enjoyment, because a man has nothing better under the sun than to eat, drink, and be merry. For this will remain with him in his labor all the days of his life, which God gives him under the sun. So in my Bible, this is kind of a reminder. It's been a little while since I've been in the book of Ecclesiastes teaching, and I don't read ahead on these mornings. We just kind of jump right in and go. But I have a little note here. Even though chapter 8 continues on to verse 17, in my Bible, I actually have it chunked out chapter 8, verse 16 to 9:9. So again, the chapters and verses weren't added till many, many years later, and they weren't inspired. So moving a chapter around isn't changing the Bible. So, though God is mysterious, be joyful. I titled that section that. I'm sure I got it from somewhere. But so maybe really this section right here is where it ought to end, because now he's going to go on to a new thought, and this thought is going to continue into chapter 9. So it's kind of like maybe we did just finish chapter 8. Maybe I'll just start these verses so that we can just say we did the official chapter 8. But verse 15, before I move on, to eat, drink, and be merry. We've talked about that before. And in short, what Solomon's saying, he's not talking about partying, and he's not talking about just living it up for this world. He just says that again and again, that he sees all this stuff where people build, but then it's taken away. And this happens, and all these things just end up being for nothing. And so the idea is to be content. Be content with what God has given you. Paul says in 1 Timothy 6, with food and clothing, with these we shall be content. And Solomon's saying the same thing. Just eat and drink your daily provision and be merry. As long as you all ate in the last 24 hours, had a house or a place to live in and clothing to wear, be happy. Because a lot of people don't even have that. So he's just telling us, be happy, be merry with those simple things. Now he says, when I applied my heart, verse 16, to know wisdom and to see the busyness that is done on the earth, even though one sees no sleep day or night, then I saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. For though a man labors to discovers it, yet he will not find it. Moreover, though a wise man attempts to know it, he will not be able to consider it. So that's going to move in to tomorrow. chapter 9. But he's beginning just to talk about these mysteries of God, that there's some stuff that even if you seek it out and seek it out, I want to understand the way the universe works, and you may never discover it. And so the kind of the vanity there of trying to chase down to have all wisdom and all knowledge when it's not going to happen. And so I kind of got us started, and then we'll pick up right there tomorrow morning in chapter 9. So God bless you guys. Have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning.